Hi, my name is Mark. So, if you're a guitar player, you've probably noticed that in many guitar solos, there are times where the guitarist chooses a lick and he just plays that lick over each chord. And even though many times we want to play over the chord changes and outline all the different chords, hitting chord tones or whatever, and using this sort of approach to a solo can be really cool, not only because sometimes that is the most appropriate thing to play, but also because it kind of adds some extra tension here and there. Sort of a push and pull sort of situation, because that lick you're repeating over each chord probably works better over some chords than others. And if you're interested in that sort of soloing, I've done videos about it before, which you can check out in the cards section right there. But in today's video, we're sort of taking that concept and saying, what if you want to do that thing of repeating a lick over different chords, but you also want to outline the chord progression. And even though there are other videos about this, and it might not work with every lick, or it might not be the best thing to play in every situation, I still think there's something you can learn from this, even if it's something you already do without really thinking about it, or even if you are thinking about it. But before we get to it, I just want to say, please subscribe to my channel. You're probably aware that YouTube's been acting a little bit weird lately. Even if you subscribe to a channel, those channel's videos may really not show up in your subscription box. And even if you ring the notification bell thingy below, you still really will not be notified of that channel's content. So if you want to stay tuned to my videos, I highly suggest that you not only subscribe and turn on all the notifications, but please follow me on social media. Not only do I post some exclusive stuff there, like improvised solos and jamming or backing tracks, and generally wherever I'm up to at the moment, but I always post there about my videos. Links for your subscribes will be below, but in general at Mark Guitar. And since you're down there, please consider leaving a like and perhaps share this video on social media. I'd highly appreciate it. Okay, so let's take a lick in like A minor. One of those bluesy licks like. Here's the lick slow if you weren't able to pick it out. We're in that sort of pentatonic blues scale position. Well, because of the nature of that lick, you can easily loop it, like. And as we mentioned before, if we were playing over a chord progression like A minor, F major, C major, and G major, a standard chord progression really, you could repeat that lick over that chord progression, sort of like this. And it would work fine, I guess. And definitely it sounds better over some chords than others, but that's sort of what gives it that push and pull, that sort of tension and release. And by repeating that phrase over each chord, you sort of get this continuity between chords. But as I mentioned before, you can still keep that idea, but still sort of follow the chord progression and play through the changes. For instance, the first part of the lick works well over the A minor chord, because the notes we're targeting is an E and then A, and both of those notes are in the A minor chord. The A minor chord has the notes A, C, and E. Again, we're doing the chords A minor, F major, C major, and G major, and the G major chord has the notes G, B, and E. So when we're targeting the notes E and A, none of those notes are chord tones. That's one of the main reasons that lick sounds a little bit tense over the G major chord. So you can probably see where I'm going with this. Since this lick works well against the A minor chord, when we go to the next chord, in this case it's an F major chord, the F major chord has the notes F, A, and C. So you can perhaps target some of those notes. An easy way to do it is just take the lick we had before. Before we were targeting the notes E and A. A is in the F major chord, but E isn't, so we can replace the E with another chord tone. For instance, we could take the E and substitute it for an F, and we got this sort of a lick. It sounds a little bit weirder than our regular blues lick, mostly because it kind of outlines an F dominant 7th chord. But because we're mostly focusing on chord tones, the lick sort of works. Again, let's play the lick in A and then alter it to F. In In my opinion, it may not make it necessarily better, but it makes it a little bit more interesting. And as you can probably guess, we can do the exact same thing for the next chord. The next chord, it's a C major chord, and the C major chord has the notes C, E, and G. So again, when we're playing that lick, we were targeting the notes E and A. E works for the C major chord, but the A doesn't. So we can take the A and substitute it either for a C or for a G. In this case, we could do the G right here, like. But we could also do the C up here, like. It mostly comes down to personal preference. I'm going to choose the G, but you can choose whichever note you want to. So until now, our licks sound sort of like this. And I think you wouldn't be surprised to know that we're going to do the same thing for the next chord, which is the G chord, which again has the notes G, B, and D. And as we said in the beginning, the A minor and G major chords don't share any chord tones. So in this case, we can't really use any of the chord tones we were focusing on before, like the E and the A. And again, we have a little bit of freedom with this one. Again, the chord tones of G being G, B, and D. Again, we could also do the G right here, and the B right here. Or if you want to be stretchy, you can grab that D right there. In this case, to make it easier, let's say that we're going for the G right here and for the B right here. So if we put together all those different pieces, we got something sort of like this. And as I mentioned before, we can do this with any lick that you can easily repeat. For instance, many times as rocky bluesy guitar players, we repeat this sort of lick. Effectively, the part we're repeating is. And again, this sort of lick works well against the A minor chord, because we're focusing on the chord tones E and A. But if we take the chord progression we had before of A minor, F major, C major, and this time instead of doing G major, let's do E major or E7. Again, it's a pretty standard chord progression. We take that easily loopable lick and substitute the notes for chord tones. Again, this one with the E and A works well for the A minor chord, but for the next chord, the F major chord, having the chord tones F, A, and C, we can, for instance, since we already have an A, we can substitute the E for an F, like we did before, but this time instead of doing, we can perhaps do. And against the A minor and F major chords, it sounds sort of like. And for the C major chord, having the chord tones C, E, and G, we already have an E, so we can take the A and perhaps lower it to a G and do. So again, A minor, F major, C major, we have. And for the last chord, our E major chord or E7 chord, depends if you're feeling fancy or not. The E major chord has the notes E, G sharp, B, and if you're going for the E7, all you need to do is add that E to the chord. Again, with our regular lick, we already have an E right here, but the A isn't in the E major chord, but the G sharp is, which is just a semitone below. So you could do something like, even though in this position I think it's more comfortable to do it like this. And because in the last chord we're doing E to G, and the next chord being E major because we have this sort of chromatic vibe, which I think sounds really cool. Again, let's check out this variation on the lick along with the chords. Again, doing this sort of thing doesn't necessarily make it better, just makes it different, and depending on what you think, maybe a little bit more interesting. Again, if you don't really like the sound of any of this, you don't really need to do it. But if you're in some sort of a rut, maybe learning stuff like this and giving it your own spin can perhaps help you with breaking out of boxes and ruts and stuff like that. I don't know, again, you guys can tell me what you think, and if you actually end up practicing any of this sort of stuff or try to do this yourself, if you can, please film yourself playing it and post it on Instagram and tag me on it. Not only will I see it, but I'll repost it and tag you on it, because I'd really like to see what you guys can come up with. But for now, let's just get to the outro. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope this video was helpful to you in any way possible, and if it was, please leave me a comment below. Do you have anything to add to this session? Did you agree? Did you not agree? Was there something I missed? Something I should have said? Also, if you have any suggestions for videos, I have this dedicated series called Yate, You Ask I Teach. I know, pretty boring, generic, and self-explanatory title, so as you can probably guess, and as the name implies, in that series I pretty much teach anything you guys have in the comment section below, so if there's something you want me to talk about, just leave it in the comment section with the hashtag Yate. And other than videos like this of tips and tricks, and guitar related stuff like improvising and soloing and stuff like that, I also do some other types of videos. For instance, sometimes I take a look at a lick that I either think is interesting or a little bit different from what whoever played it usually plays. Then I transcribe it and tab it and break it down so that you guys can learn from it. And some other times discussions and music theory related stuff where I talk about a specific topic and break it down so that you can use it by yourself. And I also have this series called Bass Tricks for Guitar, because for those who don't know, I actually started out as a bass player and gigged for a couple of years before I eventually moved on to guitar. So there are a couple of things I brought to my guitar playing that maybe some of you who didn't really start out on bass either don't consider or think about. So as you can guess, there's probably a little bit of a back catalog going on, so I'll leave those playlists in the card section right there, and on the annotations at the end screen, which will be on in just a couple of seconds, so please stay tuned. But yeah, I guess that's it. Again, thank you so very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and on all the notifications. Follow me on social media, and if you care, share this video on social media. Cheers!